Well, that's take two. We tried to get going and it died. Now we're back, hopefully. It's Jim Check with Now Media. Ian Burns, managing editor of the nation's capital. We were talking about the weather. Weather here, great. Sounds great there. Also in Ottawa. But the headlines this morning, Poilievre dares Carney to take his ideas. Liberals switch from climate crisis to climate competitiveness. And the CBC now discovers driving gas cars, maybe not the end of the world. And was the legalization of pot just another tax grab by the Liberals? And the temporary foreign workers program splitting what was used to be allies, splitting them. Another great Canadian company looks to the U.S., and that's a big, big, big story. And more turmoil in the world and lots of it. All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show, where we kind of do news a lot different here. Definitely not with the government-funded slant. Ready to go, Mr. Burns?
I'm ready for our own slant. Yeah.
There you go. Looks like we're live on YouTube. We made it this time. Parliament, just a few more sleeps, and they're going to get back in there. They might as well, they could probably rent that place out. It's a nice chamber there. It's only going to get about 73 days of work this year. I wonder, what does the janitorial staff do while they're out?
I'm sure that they also get paid and vacuum empty rooms and things like that. I mean, it's quite interesting. This is quite a good picture of it. It really reveals the truth about this very, very strange room. Because obviously the room that they're actually meant to be in, the hall, is that's being fixed or something like that. It's being repaired. This isn't the actual real floor of the House of Commons. This is like a courtyard, and you can see if you look at the
wall. Yeah,
you look at the wall. It's an external wall. It's just like, it's not. I mean, I don't even know if it's actually a courtyard. I think it's just kind of like whatever you call that, where two buildings come together. It's so strange. But like, yeah, that's a good picture of it. As for the aversion to being there, our dear leaders, yeah, we've said a lot about that, haven't we? They don't particularly enjoy it. Maybe it is the architecture. Maybe they're not big fans of being in this kind of jerry-rigged, improvised hall. They want to go back to the big leagues.
Or maybe they're just not fans of democracy, where you actually sit Parliament and discuss ideas.
Yeah, perhaps.
We got
that's true.
Pierre Poilievre pitching his ideas, and he's daring the Liberal government really to take them on. He's actually, because I mean, they are good ideas to get the housing thing going, because the Liberals pitched their ideas and actually housing starts have fallen. But let's listen in on a little bit of Pierre Poilievre's speech this morning, his live event.
Mr. Carney has accomplished the impossible. It is a triple crisis, with prices too high for buyers to buy, too low for sellers to sell, and inadequate for builders to build. How can all those things be true? How is it that it's too high to buy but too low to build? Well, the answer is that most of the money is going to government. 30% of the cost of a new home in Ontario today is direct taxes. 50%, as much as 50%, is related to land use regulations. In Vancouver today, fully 60% of the cost of a new home is government. Taxes, charges, delays, fees, lawyers, accountants. More money for a new home goes to bureaucrats in government buildings than goes to the carpenters, electricians, and plumbers who actually build the home. The governments keep talking about how they have these wonderful plans for home building. You know what they need to do? Only one thing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. These men and women back here, they know how to build homes. They know how to frame a house, to swing a hammer, to lay a foundation, to prepare the land. They know how to build homes. We have great home builders who know how to build homes.
Yeah, Greater Toronto area housing starts down 49%, City of Toronto down 65%, Vancouver down 5%, Kelowna down 36% here in Kelowna. We have Renee Merrifield on later today. She's a a home builder here, a developer here in the Kelowna area, so we'll definitely be talking about this. But pre-construction sales of new homes in GTA have similarly collapsed to historic lows, and the industry is hemorrhaging jobs. And it is quite the mess in Canada. That is, a lot of Canadian wealth is tied up in their homes, and the interest rate's still high as well. But he pitches his plan, and this is the plan that, let's contrast it to what the Liberal plan is. He's saying axe the federal sales tax on all new homes under $1.3 million. And compare that to the Liberal plan, it's axe the tax on first-time home buyers. But most first-time home buyers do not buy a new home because they can't wait for the construction. It's just not as safe to do that. Even the financing is tougher. The federal infrastructure dollars to home building municipalities must permanently list 15% more home building. And we've seen that here in Kelowna where they don't really want to free up land. We've seen many, many stories we've done in Kelowna where they're actually trying to tighten land and trying to force people into longer or into multi-family units or high-rise condos. Cut building taxes by 50%, and this is what the Liberals promised to do in this last election but refused to deliver. And this is one that, Poilievre said he was going to pressure municipalities to cut DCCs as well. And this is the big one. This is the one that you and I talked about during the election. And I believe this is the rocket fuel. Axe the capital gains tax on reinvestments in new houses in Canada. And so if somebody sells something and they put the money back into building homes, they don't have to pay the capital gains tax. That would be huge because there's a lot of people sitting on property in that they won't sell because they don't want to pay the capital gains tax.
I do wonder though. I mean, these have generally been recognized as quite good ideas, haven't they? Even by non-partisan figures, especially that last one that you've spoken about a lot as an accountant rather than in any kind of political way, as being quite shrewd. But I do wonder still, even if you've got this capital and you've got this investment that you can play with, like more coming in, is there really going to be an appetite to construct when prices look like they're starting to come down, or at best they're stagnant? And changes to immigration combined with the fact that the Canadian population is naturally shrinking and dying out without immigration. I just wonder if you're a money man and you want to know and you're trying to find the best investment, would you do that even with these incentives from a theoretical Poilievre government? I don't really know. And this is why I agree with you and also Pierre Poilievre in saying that this mess it's like many different layers of a mess, isn't it? It's a catastrophe. It's not just like one problem. It's sort of several all squashed together into this very, very ugly disaster, this mess that we're in.
Well, I mean, it's over the past decade, they've layered in from the municipalities to the provincial to the federal, they've layered in more and more regulations, more step code, made it harder and harder to build. And then, like I said, like in Kelowna, for example, they have not freed up land. And we remember doing that one story where there was that big parcel of land and the city didn't want to do it for single family homes. They said, oh no, people need to go into the downtown area, into the transportation corridors because of the climate change. We don't want single family homes. And this is where it gets tougher and tougher. Most people don't want to live in a 300 square foot home. It's hard to raise a family. You have 2 kids. How does a 300 square foot home sound to you? Where you can open your bed and then cook, and you can make cookies and shower and do everything in one room with 2 kids, and then add a dog or a cat to that. And I don't know how long that marriage would last.
Yeah, and I mean the already very low birth rates in this country would fall even further then, because having a kid would become a traumatic experience, wouldn't it, in circumstances like those? But I also find it interesting that the people, it's almost universal across Canada, the people who are saying what you just said, like go and live in your little box downtown, every one of them, by and large, I mean the majority at least, live in nice, lovely single-family homes, don't they, with like 4 spare bedrooms. Like this is a classic example of people that would never do something themselves, telling everyone else that that's great and that's what you should do. You should go and live in that little box, my friend.
I really do think that they need to take a hard look at this, because Carney's plan, he said he's going to double housing, and now they're kind of couching it by saying we're going to double housing by 2030. But that's not what they said. They were going to double housing, and they're actually falling. The numbers are actually falling, and they need to do something to stimulate this economy. They need a dramatic rate cut here in September as well. They need to do at least a half point, 0.75. They need this. This economy is like not just sputtering anymore. It's like in free fall for many of the indicators. Do we have this clip here from Mark Carney here? We're going to play this clip because we're going to switch gears here. Now the Liberal government has switched from climate change destroying the world to climate competitiveness. Let's listen in on this.
How is the federal government planning to change its climate change policies and targets for 2030 and 2035?
Well, the focus, as we stressed on Friday, and we will be going in more detail in the coming weeks, our focus in this very rapidly changing global economy is on what we call climate competitiveness. So we see becoming low carbon in any industry as being a key driver of competitiveness. So let's take conventional oil and gas, offshore, and for example, offshore oil and gas, Bay du Nord as an example. That's one of the lowest carbon new oil fields, depending on how you develop it, but that's the intention, one of the lowest carbon conventional oil and gas opportunities, conventional energy, but oil and gas opportunities that this country has. So we look at that as a way of being competitive in conventional energy. At the same time, we look at the immense opportunity in hydro, again with Churchill. That doesn't just unlock $225 billion, and you know your numbers, Premier, $225 billion for Newfoundland and Labrador. It creates enormous clean power that's going to be one of the key factors for manufacturing going forward, for artificial intelligence, data centers going forward. It creates a host of new economic opportunities in Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec across Canada. So that focus on what can we do in order to drive emissions down in a way that makes the country more competitive is crucial. Last point on it, and I can't stress this enough, our home building strategy, Build Canada Homes, and you'll be hearing more of that in the next few days, that's not just about doubling the number of homes we're building in this country by the end of the decade, or within the next decade. It's about creating a new industry that is lower carbon, that's more efficient, that homes themselves are more energy efficient by more than 20–25%. And all of that will get our emissions down and make us more competitive. So that's the focus of the government. The government is focused on results, making companies, businesses, industries more climate competitive. Thank you.
My question is, who's in this competition with us? Who do you think is competing with us? Because it ain't China. They're firing up more coal plants. It sure is not the Americans. And it ain't Russia, it ain't Brazil, it ain't most of the world. You could argue that the UK is in this competition, but they just did a deal with the Americans. You could argue that the Germans are in this, but they just bought LNG from the Americans. So who are we competing with? Is this a competition of fools, just us?
Well, I think it's the Europeans. I think you're right to mention them. Because Carney seems to have this blind spot. He seems to think that Europe is still all important and that Europe matters above all else. And he keeps mentioning Europe. It's all to him, it's almost like he's got like the special Monopoly card or something. It's like Europe. But nobody really respects Europe anymore. Have you looked at Europe lately? You would think that's a man that calls himself a European. You would really think that he would know the lay of the land in Europe, particularly when it comes to economics. Nobody's optimistic about Europe. Like now or in the future, Europe is a mess. But I do think that's what it's about. I mean, there are a couple of countries in Asia, and usually when he talks about Asian markets, this is who he means, like countries like Japan. You know, they're a bit bothered about that, but at the end of the day, they're not gonna pursue that. If the Americans drop it, the Japanese aren't just going to do it for themselves, are they? They're doing it to try and fit in with that sort of economic hegemony of the United States and cultural hegemony. But if the Americans abandon it, the Japanese aren't going to bother. The Europeans might continue to try until they self-destruct. But the question is, do we want to be in that race? You talk about competitiveness. Do we even want to enter into that race? Or should we just give that a miss entirely?
Do you think maybe it's just Carney walking back? Because don't forget, the Liberals for the last 10 years said that it's a existential crisis. I remember Trudeau saying, yeah, you know, your rent is high, your groceries are high, but what's more important is saving the climate. So you can just suck it up. And
That
then
wasn't even
now,
very long ago, was it? That was only
that was,
months ago. Yeah.
and now all of a sudden it's not existential crisis. It's you see the the media is losing its mind on it, but they're starting to come around as well. Now it's climate competitiveness. Apparently, the existential crisis is now over, and now we're going to move into this phase of climate competitiveness. And even now he's talking about how the oil is now, this is the lowest form of carbon oil. I mean, that's what people have been saying about LNG forever. And now all of a sudden, Carney's starting to tout it a bit. And he's out in Newfoundland here, and this is the next thing. Carney touts Bay du Nord, the oil field in Quebec energy deal in Newfoundland there, right? So, and then, and it's a hydro deal with Quebec that could boost Canadians' economy, easternmost province. Carney's positive appraisal of the plans came from Premier John Hogan, pitched them as an ideal candidate for inclusion in the Prime Minister's list of nation-building projects. So yeah, so the Newfoundlanders are basically, we're doing a lot of offshore drilling, and that was kind of like kibosh there in this climate existential crisis, and all of a sudden, it's not a existential crisis, it's a climate competitiveness crisis.
I mean, look, as far as I'm concerned, it's like almost like if I was a psychiatrist and I was treating the Liberal Party, I was treating Mark Carney, I was trying to make him better, and he had some sort of terrible mental illness that made him self-sabotage. And if we could work it together so that he could say climate competitiveness or whatever it is, right? Psychological competitiveness. If he could just give it this veneer and then walk out of the clinic and be healthy and use that veneer to get through life, then I would feel like a pretty happy psychiatrist in that position. I'd think, okay, he's okay now, he's healthy. And I feel like that's kind of what this is, isn't it? It's just a lie that they're telling themselves so that they can try and be healthy again. They can try and actually be at least a little bit in tune with the Canadian people and in tune with the times that we live in, and to get the priorities right. And if they just want to get the word climate into something so that they can walk around and talk about climate, even though it's a load of bollocks and it's actually building oil rigs and stuff like that, then fine. If you want to do that, fine. It's, as you've been mentioning Justin Trudeau, it's rather a lot better than that, isn't it? So, I mean, it's obviously hypocrisy, but then you have to think, like the sort of mentally ill person that goes to see the psychiatrist, the Liberal Party is seriously confused and sick. Well, and it needs a way to just walk around and do things day to day. It needs that basic foundation. And this might be it. As ridiculous as it is, this might help the Liberal Party be a bit less sick.
Well, I think that, like, we got one viewer here. I think it's going to be tough for a lot of the people that really gave in to this whole existential crisis, and like we're screeching and screaming. And now that's being kind of like the rug's being pulled out from underneath them. They're just looking to spread hate on like Pierre Poilievre, calling him MAGA, and people like us MAGA and all this stuff. When the reality is, they've switched from existential crisis to climate competitiveness to actually recognizing that our economy's in the toilet, and these boomers that sold out Canadian youth are now left wondering. It's no different than the people wearing masks still, that like they're wondering why everybody else isn't wearing a mask, and they're just going to be stuck in this island by themselves when it's screeching and screaming into the wind.
Yeah, well, I mean, just in purely sort of in terms of reality and what's actually in the best interest of the Canadian people, I think we can look at this and say, whatever you want to say, whatever headline you want to give it, it's probably, it's better, isn't it? And it's an improvement. But I suppose the question this is just going to intensify, isn't it? As the sort of disaffected environmental caucus within the Liberal Party, as they get more and more upset, and they start to get a bit noisier, and then it stops being anonymous, interviews that they give to the CBC, and it starts being like actual with a microphone saying, I'm not happy about this. Then, yeah, they're going to have some serious questions, and then we can look back on this obvious hypocrisy and have a different view. But I just think this is kind of like a victory for the people who've been, for the last 10 years, been saying that Justin Trudeau is an extremist and that he was harming the Canadian economy. It's a victory for those people, even though it's being kind of wrapped in this shroud of nonsense.
I don't know if there's a way back for a lot of people that lost, like really bought into it and just felt like vigilantes, climate vigilantes, so they could shame people, virtue signaling. And here's Trudeau. He was trying to infect the rest of the world too. The government of Canada sent $500 million over the last 3 years to South America for climate change mitigation and adaptation. Can we get our money back?
Money well spent, eh?
Can we get our money back? Probably not.
I wonder what that achieved.
And here we go.
Gender responsive. What?
And here
What does
we
that
go.
mean?
Here we go. China boosting coal capacity at record high. China knows power is everything. Every economy knows. Any healthy economy knows power is everything. Energy is everything. And China's, they're doing renewables at like a rate that nobody can even compete with. Yet they're also still doing coal, and that's at record highs, right? So they're definitely not in this competition.
Well, the Chinese, I mean, one of the reasons they're using coal is because they're actually not in a very good position when it comes to energy overall. They actually have compared to Canada, compared to the US, that's their sort of Achilles heel, really. They don't have an abundance of energy that they can just tap into easily. I mean, they do have quite a lot of energy, but obviously they also have quite a lot of people. So it's all relative. But they end up having to burn coal, which is a pretty inefficient, like nowadays anyway, it's a pretty inefficient way of powering an economy. So it's kind of like, in a way, it's like a flex, and it's like, look how pragmatic we are. We're just going to get energy at any sort of cost. But it's also indicative of their weakness, which is, if they were ever to be landlocked, or if there was ever to be some kind of blockade on China, maritime blockade, they would be completely screwed because they rely on energy from around the world, unlike, for example, the United States, which is one of the strengths of the US. So it's kind of a mixed picture, that.
Obviously, and then I just read this last piece here in the comment there from the people accusing us of being MAGA. She actually recognized that your accent is not of Canada, that you need to go back home. Such welcoming people.
Where is this? I can't see. Where's this TikTok?
No, it's on YouTube there. It says you need to go home.
On YouTube? I can't see this on YouTube.
No, if you look
Usually
at
I see these comments coming in. This is somebody attacking us from the left with a bit of lefty xenophobia.
It's in the live chat. You might have to switch from top chat to live chat. But anyway,
I didn't realize we had any of that.
From the brain trust of the Liberal Party, we're going to listen in on one of the top speakers, Melanie Joly. She's getting lots of microphone time lately.
Does Canada remain committed to the greenhouse gas emission targets that it's set for 2030 and 2035?
We want to make sure that we find ways to support our objective and, of course, to be net zero by 2050. The goal for 2026 was to have 20% of all electric vehicles being sold in Canada to be EVs. And at the end of last year, we were at 19%. What happened is we decided to not follow up with our own subsidies back in the spring. And by Canada having not offering subsidies, the percentage of electric vehicles being sold in Canada right now is at around 8%. We want to build more EVs in Canada because we know the world is going there. So rather than scrapping the entire EV mandates, rather than like the Conservative wants us to do, which is to let go all our objectives to counter impacts of climate change, we need to make sure we're doing both.
Cool.
Yeah. And then, one of the reasons that EVs sales have dropped is they put tariffs on Teslas, which is the #1 selling electric vehicle in Canada. So people just weren't buying them. But here's in Canada's Q2 2025 declines. Quebec, 38% decline. British Columbia, 27% decline. PEI, 30% decline. Ontario, 18% decline. Nova Scotia, 14%. Saskatchewan, 11%. And probably because nobody was buying them there in the first place. Manitoba, 4.6%. New Brunswick, 1.6%. There you go. But here's the interesting thing is, in a strange coincidence there, right? CBC published an article this morning declaring that Mark Carney's controversial decision to pause EV sales mandates might not be that bad for climate. And that's interviewing a climate policy researcher. I thought before that it was an existential threat. If everybody wasn't driving an EV, that the world was going to light on fire and this would be the end of the world. All of a sudden, Mark Carney and the Liberals decide that they don't need an EV mandate right now. And here comes CBC to the defense. Isn't that amazing?
It's brilliant, isn't it? Mark Carney just throws a milkshake on the floor, and then CBC come in with a mop, don't they, right away? It's like, I'll get that for you, my lord. It's brilliant.
And then just before anybody starts freaking out about the EV mandates, I drive a Tesla. I've been driving one for 2 years. I think one of the best vehicles ever made. But mandating people to drive them is absolutely ridiculous. And but it's interesting to watch them walk it back, though, right? And we've been saying on this show for, 6 months, and the EV mandate, or there'll be no auto sector to protect in Canada. The CEOs said it. Everybody said it, except the Liberals, who are adamant that the EV mandate must stay. And it's still here in British Columbia, though. The EV mandate still continues here in BC. So we're waiting for David Eby to walk it back as well. But
it's interesting there. If you see, I've excerpted part of that article where they say the Liberal government announced the delay to the EV mandate as part of measures to help sectors most affected by US President Donald Trump's tariffs. And it says including the auto sector. Yeah, obviously the auto sector is affected, but this EV mandate is completely independent of the Trump tariffs, as you've said, and it's yet another attempt by the CBC. They're not only cleaning up that milkshake, are they? But they're also they're just offering to carry Mark Carney's bags. They'll do anything, really. Anything you want, my lord, I will do it for you.
Here's the biggest truth of all: the Americans ended the EV mandate. And so this would be a huge opportunity for Canada to stick with it, because nobody really wants to build EVs down in the United States other than Tesla. So this should be the opportunity of opportunities here in Canada. Because if the Americans are building EVs, and like Melanie says, the whole world is going to EVs, then this should be the opportunity of a lifetime. Shouldn't it, Melanie? Shouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? If they're not building, the America's not building EVs, or focusing on EVs, and Canada is, why wouldn't we? Like, it's just like, we've taken out one of the biggest players. It's comedy.
There's one of the people that they interview as well. I can't actually remember what his job title is, but he's somehow involved in selling EVs. He says, "Oh no, the real answer to this problem is get the subsidies back. Come on, open up the floodgates again." And he says that will, because EVs are expensive, so Canadians are obviously they're not so sure. So bring in the subsidies and then they'll buy them. Not a mention from that chap about Chinese EVs, which are cheap as chips, completely market dominant in when it comes to the cheaper end of the market.
Even in the US right now,
effectively banned from this country.
Even in the US right now, the Teslas are lower than the average price of a car. There you go.
Is that when you factor in all of the incentives and things that they have?
Yeah, not even that anymore, but and that's the low-end Teslas for sure. This is really big news. This is absolutely massive news here. Teck, one of Canada's biggest companies, resource companies too, in critical minerals, and owns Highland Copper here in the interior of British Columbia, there up by Kamloops there in Logan Lake. Anglo American announced that they have reached an agreement to combine the two companies on a merger equals to become Anglo Teck, a global critical minerals champion and top 5 global copper producer, headquartered in Canada, expected to offer investors about a 70% exposure to copper. Copper is one of the critical minerals needed in the electrification of the world. I mean, that's happening no matter what. Again, though, this Anglo is an American company, and another big company.
It's American financing, but it's headquartered in the UK, so it's a bit of a... It has connections to... or actually, maybe it even owns De Beers. Cecil Rhodes, his old company. So it's got quite an interesting history.
And then Melanie Joly, the brain trust of the Liberal Party, has come out and says, as part of Canada's drive to become the strongest economy in the world, the federal government welcomes new investments in our mining sector. This is not an investment, this is a takeover. Anglo-American and a Teck proposed merger equals to be headquartered in Canada. That's just to kind of get the deal done, I'm sure. And then EB came out as well in support. Anglo Teck will be the largest company to set up its global headquarters in BC and set to become the largest critical minerals company in the world. I mean, they have their operations all over the world.
That's going to get him in trouble, though, coming out and say that. You're not supposed to like natural resources as a left-wing politician. I also find it funny, by the way, in Melanie Joly's statement, where she lists everything that she expects, where she talks about the new headquarters of Vancouver, jobs, employment, blah, blah, blah. And then she says ESG requirements. That's also one of her, that's like top 5 requests from Melanie Joly.
I don't think we put a stock chart in here for Teck, but Teck was attacked by the Liberal government. The Teck stock dropped precipitously when they walked away from that Fort Mac deal where they invested over $1 billion they invested. I think it was the Frontier project. And the Liberal government kiboshed it, and Teck just walked away from it. I don't know how many people are familiar with Teck. Teck also owns the Trail Cominco property. That was Teck Cominco. And that was the big smelter there in Trail. If you've ever been to Trail, you should go take a tour of that. Also has some history there with the Second World War, because that's where they made the heavy water for the bombs they dropped in Hiroshima. Teck is one of Canada's greatest companies, and it's really is the last major independent Canadian mining champion, because most of the Canadian companies have been bought out because Canada not friendly to mining. I've interviewed many of the CEOs of some of the greatest companies that are, like still listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange and that, but don't mine here. But Teck, is now been taken out by an Anglo-American, which is, I guess it was founded by a South Africa, and lots of mining in South Africa as well. But Teck was a top 20 company by market cap, steel making, coal, copper, zinc. Again, in big pension fund exposure. And again, this is another company. I think Teck, $23 billion market cap. It used to be $30 billion. Again, it definitely suffered under Liberal regulation, definitely had a tough time in Canada with all the Liberal regulation and stuff like that. Again, that you'll look and read up on that Frontier project they walked away from in Fort Mac after spending over $1 billion.
Some interesting stuff down here, like in the document about, because David Eby's mentioned this by name, hasn't he? This company, when he talks about, particularly Trail, where he talks about that, because they produce something now. Was it like night vision goggles or something important for night vision goggles? Yeah, this is something that he's used so many times, hasn't he? As a kind of like, we've got you, Trump. Don't be so silly. But I mean, it's quite interesting now that Teck's going to be absorbed. I mean, they're saying that this is a merger of equals. That's complete nonsense, isn't it? It's an Anglo-American takeover, really, isn't it? Yeah. And you can see that because the CEO of Anglo-American is going to become the CEO of this company, whereas the CEO of Teck is going to become the deputy.
Yeah, well, the percentages are obvious as well, right? Like which company will have. Yeah.
But then you have to ask, David Eby, going on now as if Teck's going to sort of, are they always going to do what's right for Canada, especially in a trade war with the United States? I mean, are they going to sort of risk alienating the world's most important market? I'm not so sure.
No, they're going to do what's in the best interests of their shareholders. That's what they're going to do.
I wonder if Eby will be celebrating that when that happens.
I think this one deserves scrutiny. I mean, before they let it go to the American companies, because there's not many companies left in Canada that are actually giants. Suncor will be one of the ones that are left, with a $60 billion market cap, and Suncor under tremendous pressure from the Liberals as well. Suncor, just like a popular whipping boy of the Liberals. Anyway, all we're going to have left in Canada is the banks.
We'll have Air Canada, won't we?
I think that's more of corporate welfare than it is a corporation election.
Maybe we can ask the Americans and Brazilians if they'll give us Tim Hortons back as well. They might be kind and give it to us.
The Department of Health, this is from Hollywood and Blacklocks, ordered so many surplus ventilators from Baylis Medical Technologies that it couldn't even give them away. And this is more in the liberal waste. Ex-liberal MP Frank Baylis credited the sole source $237 million contract with helping rescue his company during the pandemic. That's cool, eh? An MP, former MP, his company was rescued during the pandemic.
He ran for the leadership as well, if you remember.
A $237 sole source contract. Amazing, right? How fortuitous for him, eh?
What a coincidence. Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable that.
How fortuitous. And then say no to drugs. Marijuana revenues plateau. You know, this is the federal revenue from marijuana taxes plateaued around $250 million a year. And that's the one thing Justin Trudeau can claim as the one thing he got accomplished. That was in July 1st, I believe, that pot was legalized in Canada, one of the first nations in the world to legalize pot. And if you have to look back on it, if you were a cynic, you would say they legalized it so they could get access to more taxation. And
totally. I mean, that was open. They were open about that a lot of the time, weren't they? It's like a lot of it was about money, and that cynical approach.
Now they're putting out reports that it's actually leading to psychosis in many of our youth, and that federal only cannabis revenues $244 million in 2024, and that was the figure was 256 in 2020. And that was, like the year it was licensed. And all those people that went out and bought pot shops, remember that big kind of like pot bonanza. There was a pot shop opening up almost every 5 feet. And then the municipalities started regulating, and then you can't have one within 3 because they were going to make nothing but money. Turns out, not so much, eh? Not so much.
Well, they also thought, hilariously in retrospect, and many people pointed this out at the time, but they also thought that the black market and everything that it was estimated to be worth would translate into the white market, or whatever the hell you call it, the legal market, whereas in reality the black market is going on strong, as many people said it would.
Yeah, hundreds of marijuana dealers, at least 290, were delinquent in their taxes. A total of 34 insolvent corporations, including national distributors, filed for bankruptcy. And I invested in pot stocks as well, just because it was a play. I mean, everybody was talking about it, and I sold everything before July 1st because you knew that the hype was over at that point. Like there was nothing else to do, and you knew that it would become an agricultural stock, which is doesn't do very well in Canada, and. Yeah, so all this hype, it was a lot of mining companies that converted into pot stocks at that time. Everybody was, many of these things skyrocketed to extreme valuations. Like I'm talking extreme valuations. And then, like I said, people were buying pot stores all over the place. And then again, reality. It's like all those yogurt shops that opened up when they started doing those yogurt shops. I think there was none in Kelowna, all of a sudden there was 20. And I think maybe there's 1 or 2 left now.
What was that? Frozen yogurt?
Frozen yogurt. That's a Frozo, or I don't know even what it was called, right?
Yeah.
So you go in there and you had your little cup, and then you went down the line and I kept adding all this stuff, and they waited at the end, and you expected like $5, and it was like $25, and you're just like, I ain't coming back for a bowl of sugar.
I had that exact experience, in West Kelowna.
Yeah, because your kids are just going down the line and they're adding sprinkles and all this stuff to it, and then you get to the end and they weigh
like $6.
And they weigh it, and you're just like, you're in shock. Another liberal mess, man. And wow, just imagine if they just came clean on all this stuff. Cabinet imposed sanctions on Russia without ensuring they'd be enforced. Again, lots of podium talk, very little follow-up, right? And that's Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, because she says she has Ukrainian roots, right? The remarkably brave people of Ukraine. It's been challenging to develop a shared understanding of enforcement rules, wrote auditors in the Department of Foreign Affairs. Thousands of sanctions against individual Russians and pro-Kremlin groups left staff with little means to actually enforce any of them. There you go.
I mean, this is just in miniature a lot of things that happened during the Trudeau government, isn't it? Where there's a lot of kind of telling the bureaucracy, like the executive, like, we're going to do this, so you do this, and then they're just like, what? Like, how do I do this exactly? Like, there's often quite a big gap between what's promised and what's possible.
This is how serious they were, though, right? They assigned 14 employees of their 44,000 were assigned to enforcement of 65 rounds of sanctions. They probably couldn't even print them out. against thousands of friends of Russia, said the report. The increasing and long-term workload created in relation to the compliance was not anticipated or adequately staffed. Imagine
And
that.
The Russian oligarchy, the magnates in Russia, they've been dodging sanctions now for decades. They're quite competent. They're quite capable of getting around it. So if you've got a handful of employees in Ottawa trying to enforce all these sanctions, I don't think you're going to be able to match the countermeasures that the Russian oligarchs put in place, realistically speaking.
But here you go. Listen to what Freeland said. The people of Ukraine have been heroically resisting Putin's barbaric invasion. The very young and the very old remaining resolute and defiant as the air raid sirens ring out. Civilian recruits and battle-hardened soldiers, blah, 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 on and on and on. Ukrainians have been fighting for their country, for their sovereignty, and for their future of Ukraine. But in Mariupol and Belgorod, and in freezing, muddy trenches all across Ukraine, they've also been fighting our fight, the fight for democracy. This is the reason why Canada is resolute. We want to make sure Ukraine wins, and we will win this war. And with that, they assigned 14 people to administer the 65 sanctions. That's how resolute we were. 14 people.
But even what she's saying is just such nonsense. Fighting for our democracy. What? What are you talking about?
This shows you how serious they are. But CTV can't help themselves because there's still, just like I say, some liberals out there that have dedicated their whole lives to tell everybody that it's an existential crisis and that you're not allowed to take a vacation or do anything. Now CTV puts out this piece here, global warming linked to the consumption of sugary drinks and ice cream.
They did. It's funny that this tweet that whoever this Jack person is, right, saying I think they're just doing it for attention. There were about 3 or 4 CTV tweets over the last couple of days, very similar to this. Yeah. And it does feel like that, where they just get there are way more comments than likes, which people call being ratioed. It's almost like they know what's going to happen, and they're doing it anyway, just to kind of troll or something. Because it's obviously absurd.
It's bait. It's like that Laura Babcock. She does those things just so that she can bait people in, and that's how she gets some activity in her account. You just bait people, and then of course
I don't know what CTV are thinking. Why is that a strategy for them? Is that a commercial strategy just to troll people on Twitter?
Apparently it is. Here's CBC again doing the work for the Liberals. Listen in on this clip here from David Cochran.
And we have Rob Russo with us. So, Kate, there's been a lot of different analysis on the temporary foreign worker program, right? Pierre Poilievre wants to get rid of it because he says it's a big factor in high youth unemployment. Other economists say youth unemployment is just a leading indicator of overall economic slowdown. And if there's an immigration stream that's affecting young kids, it's international students more than temporary foreign workers. So what do you make of the decision to go after this for these reasons when there is some data that suggests it's different things actually causing this?
Well, I think David spoke to the contrast that this can create between the Conservatives' plan for dealing with a sluggish economy and high unemployment. To your point, David, youth unemployment in some parts of the country is over 20%. This is a crisis, and so the Conservatives have come up with one proposal of several to look at addressing that. So this certainly creates some discomfort for the government in defending the status quo for primarily boomers or retirees that are comfortable. And then on the other side of that, young people or those trying to enter the workforce, which is obviously the coalition of voters that Poilievre is looking to appeal to. One other contrast that it creates for the Conservatives to take advantage of or for the Liberal government to try and defend is around organized labor. You had the Prime Minister initially respond to this proposal and say, well, I'm hearing directly from companies and corporations in Quebec that they need this program. If you're an organized labor leader in Canada, you're probably not thrilled with that message. You're not thrilled to hear that the Prime Minister might be prioritizing the needs of corporate Canada or corporate companies as opposed to that of workers. And so it's an opportunity for the Conservatives to, yes, see.
Again, this is another example of the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. And there's, like the corporations definitely, like when Mark Carney said this is the second most important thing. When he talks to Canadians, and the Canadians he's talking to is obviously corporations that benefit from cheap labor and labor that's easy to exploit.
But also, like, this guy's upset here about Cochrane's line of questioning, saying that he's a government shill. But I mean, you can just turn his logic against him, surely, because if he's coming out and saying, actually, it's international students the real problem, okay, why don't we just ban student visas then? If that's the case, that's obviously what David Cochrane thinks is a good idea. But also, if 3 million people, that's how many non-permanent residents there were in Canada at the beginning of this year, if that's not having an effect on employment or unemployment, I mean, for one, I'm astonished by that. I'm stunned by that. But if you think that it has no effect, it's particularly the temporary foreign worker program, then what's the big fuss then? Just abolish it. Just get rid of it then. It's obviously unimportant, isn't it?
I have an interview with the BC GEU here tomorrow, so that'll be interesting. That's their stance on it. We were going to play this clip, but we're going to play this clip later. Well, actually, we'll play this clip because here's Jasra Singh Hallan is playing, put together a little clip on the Liberals here. We're going to play it here.
Mark Carney promised to be different. Instead, everything is worse.
Canada lost 41,000 jobs in July. 34,000 of those were between the ages of 15 to 24.
The point of that is just to show that youth unemployment in some parts of Canada now over 20%. And obviously, I mean, just basic math says if you're having temporary foreign workers fill jobs at McDonald's and fast food joints, why can't Canadian youth do those jobs? Why are we paying people to come here and paying them $36 and $40 an hour when Canadian youth can't get a job?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
I mean, it's the stories that have come out usually from parents saying that they've been trying to get a job for their kid, trying to help their kid get a job. I mean, there's quite a lot of them out there now, and it's quite hard, especially when they're literally talking about places like McDonald's and things like fast food restaurants. We all know what's going on at fast food restaurants, don't we? For God's sake, at this point, we don't have to pretend like it's a mystery. So yeah, I mean, that's directly linked to immigration at large, I would say. But I mean, the temporary foreign worker program is one part of that.
And it's starting to split. It used to be friends, they're actually colleagues, and now former BC NDP minister furious with EB over Premier's opposition to the temporary foreign workers scheme. See, so furious to see this. It happens all the time. Government underfunds services and points fingers at immigrants through flawed policies. Like this is the argument that was made yesterday. It says the government doesn't have enough services. How can they have enough services? Like if you let in like 3 million people and there's not enough housing, not enough healthcare, where were they supposed to get that from? Just where?
Well, EB is even saying, like, in his original comments, he's saying we've got an immigration system that brings people in, and then they go straight to homeless shelters and they go straight to food banks. So, yeah, in that scenario, you're adding people, so you're adding demand, but then you're not increasing supply because they're not employed, they don't pay taxes. I mean, obviously, in that situation, that's a bad deal. That's a bad deal for whoever the jurisdiction is there.
I'd love to interview Katarina Chen. I think I'll reach out and see if she'll do an interview because, I mean, her answer is right there. It says it's pointing the finger at immigrants through flawed government policies that they're not ready for these immigrants. Well, how can they be ready? Like with what? Is it a magic thing? Just like did they close hospitals? Did they demolish houses or what? You can't add so much supply or demand to very little supply. Seems like common sense.
This is the people who are who are in favour of open doors, open borders, immigration systems. They always fall back on this.
And where do they go?
They just pretend that demand doesn't exist. It's just not. It's just all about supply. It's just all about the government has to spend more. That's it. That's the only answer.
And what is their trump card? This fuels bias and discrimination. That's where they go.
We're also saying immigrants like me. So she's saying bias and discrimination, and she says immigrants like me. Number one, as far as I'm aware, I can't find anywhere that she was a temporary foreign worker. Don't think so. I think she came over as a student. It's not it's not the same thing. It's apples and oranges. But then she's saying bias and discrimination. Okay, a woman who's an immigrant and became one of the most powerful people in British Columbia. How have you been dealing with all this discrimination? It looks like you've been doing all right, to be honest. I mean, what a joke. And then just this, I just find that comment as well, immigrants like me. It's like, should I start saying that as well? Immigrants like me don't like immigrants like her. Like, what the hell are you doing? She's just trying to kind of recruit millions of people, which is like Canada's immigrant population, and say, we don't like this. It's like, no, you don't like this. You're one person.
And then here again, Brian Lilly put this out. Tommy guns and Kamloops here looking. Tommy guns, our Kamloops has unemployment of 10% and youth unemployment of 51,000, and yet we're trying to recruit a foreign worker here for the job at Tommy guns.
That's
talking about
interesting, isn't it, to be a barber?
Talking about the BCGEU, we have an interview scheduled tomorrow with Paul Finch, the president. But they're expanding their picket lines to 8 new cities, including Kamloops and Kelowna. And that's, they'll be picketing in Vancouver, PG, Surrey, Victoria, Kamloops, Nanaimo, Williams Lake, Cranbrook, Nelson, Fort St. John, and Smithers. And that's about 22 total sites and over 4,000 workers. The union's asking for a 2-year agreement that lifts wages for members at the lower end of the pay scale, introduces targeted occupational adjustments, incorporates bonuses in the base salaries to provide lasting improvements. It's also designed to help workers cope with the affordability crisis while strengthening the public service that British Columbians rely on. The average wage for a public service workers make about 2.7 below the overall provincial weekly average wage. For example, they pay wildfire fighters, they top out at $56,000 a year. That seems low for a wildfire fighter. They're asking for 4% and 4.25% increases and have proposed fair and say they're fair and reasonable. That's from the president there. So the government's latest offer, just 1.5 for the first year and 2 in the second, falls short. There you go. We're going to have Paul in tomorrow, and I'm going to ask him the question: Is the temporary foreign workers have the governments abandoned the unions? We've seen that. The unions seem to be going with different parties now, as opposed to like the NDP used to be the party of unions. And I would even say the Liberals, but most of the unions have gone with conservative parties.
Well, there's always a bit of friction, isn't there, between the union and whichever government is in power, because they're the ones that decide whether they get the pay rises that they demand or not. So I think that's what it is. But this is really a symptom. Like, this always pops up. This is a symptom of a sick economy, isn't it? Which is in turn the symptom of a sick society. When you get all these people going on strikes, this is happening in Europe as well. France, a very sick society right now. They're about to endure a massive strike. But it's just a sign that things are going wrong. Like, the train is off the tracks. Yeah. And this is why it's not optional. It's not something, a luxury. It's not just something nice to have a growing economy. It's fundamentally essential. It's essential to everything else. If your economy doesn't grow, things like this are going to happen all the time, and everything will just fall apart.
We're going to speed up a little bit here. BC teacher sentenced for sexual assault, but the lawyer says he doesn't really want him to go to jail because he doesn't like noise, and that would make jail intolerable. When you do crimes, there's a consequence. And can everybody say that? Well, I don't really want to go to jail. I have an aversion to steel bars.
I don't like bad smells and loud noises.
You can go on Kelowna now and read that story. Alberta bans sexual images in the school library books under the revised order, so they're kind of like changing that order. Now books that contain a written description of sex will be permitted. Who wants this anyway? Images of sex will be forbidden. Okay. Ottawa man sentenced to 10 years in neo-Nazi terrorist propaganda trial. So a man from Ottawa has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for promoting propaganda against the Jewish people for an extremist group. Patrick Gordon McDonald is also convicted of facilitating terrorist activities.
It's a big sentence, isn't it? That's the I mean, people do this kind of thing all the time. there's always going to be somebody in their basement that is unhappy with Jews or whatever the hell it is. What is interesting is how the justice system has reacted here and given them 10 years. That is, by Canadian standards, modern Canadian standards, that's like a bumper sentence, isn't it? And I find that quite intriguing.
The European Parliament president said there is a market for Canadian oil and gas. Look at that. Even the Europeans are saying, it's okay, we'll take it.
There's a business case, you might say. You might put it that way.
Because they realize that energy, what they've been trying to kibosh energy, what did they see their economy tailspin? Canada's still buying into it, though. So, and here we got a little clip to play here. The Nepalese government banned social media last week to regulate misinformation, and they killed a bunch of youth as well. They fired live rounds into a crowd, and I can't remember the number. Do you know the number? Of 17 or so young people died. And
yeah, I'm not sure what the number is now.
And then the parliament is on fire here, and the government officials are fleeing in helicopters. I'm going to play this clip here. There you go. You get the idea. And then I think the hammer and sickle came down as well. I think that country is in a full uprising.
Well, one of the main things that they're upset about is nepotism, which I find quite interesting. Because nepotism and cronyism, like a sealed off economy where you can't get access unless you know someone, unless you're somebody's kid or something like that. That is like toxic, isn't it, to any society? And obviously this is what's happened. And I suppose to try and bring it into the Canadian context there, a very small sort of imitation of this, you could say, is the foreign worker program, which is looked upon as kind of sealing off economic opportunities and making it more about like who you know and who you are rather than an open economy. But yeah, like I say, a much smaller.
Yeah, the government said they banned social media because of Chinese influence, but the young people weren't buying it. So that, like, we also have stuff here in Canada where they're trying to regulate the internet as well. It's a tough thing to do these days.
Very.
This is in the stranger world. There was actually GoFundMe set up for the accused in the stabbing of the young Ukrainian girl on the train. And then GoFundMe started pulling those accounts down. It's amazing. Like the Democrats, like the liberal media is actually, losing its mind, and like like there's a say her name campaign going on the internet here. And I'm not going to spend too much time on here because we don't have a lot of time. But Zorhan, we'll go on to the next one. Zorhan Madani there, the guy running the communist, self-declared, I think, said he will reduce the jail population and ensure New York City courts release suspects faster. Just what we need in this day and age is people released that have committed crimes into the public. And then BBC putting
It's remarkable, isn't it? I tell you what, it's astonishing that those ideas can survive. Because this is just the latest one, isn't it? There have been so many cases where somebody that's been arrested like dozens of times has gone out and committed a horrible crime.
So this
I can't believe that this idea survives. It's it's quite interesting at this point, isn't it? It's fascinating.
What makes this horrific, and it's an international story now, BBC covering it, fatal stabbing Ukrainian refugee in North Carolina. I thought we were supposed to protect the Ukrainian people at all costs. Ignites crime debate. What debate? This girl was minding her own business, absolutely minding her own business. Like she wasn't doing anything, she was just on her phone. And then apparently there's some out there, they're saying that the guy walked around and said, I won't even get into it. There's a lot of out there. You want to go find it. You can find all the allegations out there, right? So CTV video shows fatal stabbing. Like it's absolutely, I can't watch it again. I did watch it. And then, he's walking around with a knife dripping blood everywhere. And then he takes off his shirt because it's soaked in blood too. And absolutely horrific. That could be anybody's, anybody's kid. And here's whatever his name, Zorhan, telling you that we need to open the jails up and let the people out. It's just like, it's almost like they're trying to destroy society.
I'd say it could be anybody. It could be anybody, sort of, but it couldn't be somebody like in the American elite, obviously, because they don't touch public transport. They're disgusted by it, and they know that things like this might happen. So the people that have actually implemented these decisions, the judge involved in this case, that the woman that everybody's pointing to now, obviously it couldn't have been her, because she wouldn't have been on public transport.
Well, in France, lots of stuff going on in France too. This is the French government collapses again, and now they're demanding an impeachment of Macron. And like you said, Macron's almost like royalty there. The entire country will be brought to a standstill in 2 days' time, they say. And isn't this the third prime minister that's in what, a year, or what is this? What's the time frame for this changing government here?
Yeah, I think that's right. Third in 18 months or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was Michel Barnier was the previous one, wasn't it? And now they're going to get another one. And then I can't remember, there was another chap who was there for a bit longer. Yeah, French politics is just absolutely mad now. Usually I'm kind of aware of what's going on, but it's just so crazy lately.
How does Macron survive this? It's interesting.
Well, he can't really be gotten rid of. I mean, it's very hard to do that anyway, I think, to get rid of a French president. Like, the French presidency is a mighty institution. It's a glorious, sort of extremely powerful, dignified, supposed to be dignified anyway, institution. So it's hard to just like turf them. It's not like Britain, where you can just get rid of a prime minister in like 24 hours or something like that. It's kind of hard to do. But I mean, the pressure is, what they're trying to do is put pressure on him to get him to resign, to voluntarily go. And what they're saying is, we're not gonna have any government. We're not gonna create any government. We're not going to allow it to happen unless you bugger off and resign.
Yeah, well, he's spilled the milkshake a few times, Macron. And maybe it's time for Macron to go. Breaking, Israel carried out strikes in targeting the Hamas leadership. That was in Qatar, apparently with ceasefire talks. They're going to play this clip here from Fox.
This is significant. Moments ago, the Israeli military saying that it conducted a strike against senior Hamas leadership. Multiple explosions reported not in Gaza, but in the capital city of Doha in Qatar. In Tel Aviv, Greg Palcott's watching that story. And Greg, it's early. What have you learned from there? Hello.
We just got to get through some of this stuff here. But explosions in Doha apparently took out the leadership of Hamas there. Said that it targeted
here and now that apparently they survived, but there'll be a lot to come out yet. But the latest indication is that they actually survived. So, but we'll see.
We shall. This is another really, that's three reallys, a big story. MDA loses that $1.8 billion contract with EchoStar. And you know why? SpaceX bought EchoStar.
Okay.
So SpaceX bought EchoStar, and that gives Elon Musk basically the ability now to basically use his Starlink satellite system and the cellular system to create, his own kind of cellular network where he doesn't need T-Mobile or Rogers or anybody like that. And that's a big deal. And look at this. This is one of Canada's great tech companies as well, losing out. And you'll pull up the stock chart here for MDA Space Limited. And you can see the participants fall there. Like you can see right at the end, the right there, falling into the low 30s there. Just falling off of a cliff there. And then that's SpaceX acquiring the wireless spectrum from EchoStar for $17 billion. And that includes the AWS-4 and H-Block licenses for satellite and mobile communications. SpaceX will pay $8.5 billion in cash, $8.5 billion in stock. And SpaceX is not a publicly traded company. And they will also cover $2 billion of EchoStar's debt. And that's a huge move by Starlink. Absolutely huge. And then this is the company that Canadian Doug Ford has shunned. Again, this guy in the picture there, has a Canadian mother and a Canadian passport. But
and was
apparently,
educated in part in Canada as well, wasn't he?
and he lived in Saskatchewan.
Kingston, I think.
Saskatchewan. He lived in Saskatchewan. Yeah, I think he went to Kingston or something. I think so.
Queen's University, isn't it, in Kingston? I think so. I can't remember for sure. And then he went to University of Pennsylvania.
But according to some liberals, he's a Nazi.
I mean, it does just look astonishing, doesn't it? I'm thinking, you mentioned Doug Ford. I'm just remembering Chrystia Freeland, some of the things that she came out and said. It's just so unprofessional, primarily, isn't it? It's
it hurts
kind of
Canada. It hurts
very
Canada.
cheap.
Absolutely hurts Canada. Just their virtue signaling and rhetoric actually hurts Canada. Because this guy might be actually favorable to Canada, and we could use some favor right now.
But you could argue, and they probably would argue, it might have hurt Canada, but it helped the Liberal Party. Because there was a fury directed towards Elon Musk for his association with Donald Trump, wasn't there? And they were cashing in on that, and they could say, well, we won the election, so it was worth it.
And also, I watched this announcement too. Tesla just unveiled the Mega Block. It's a new medium voltage energy storage solution. It's huge. You can go watch it yourself. The Mega Block, it connects Megapacks. Megapack, like he loves the names, the Megapacks, the Mega Blocks. And also, it said that he's going to start building transformers. So he's building these systems. There's a system in one of the Hawaiian Islands that's all Tesla. All with solar energy, all on battery. Solar and battery running their whole grid. It works. So there you go. But it can't, apparently, like, I'd like to see Canada even compete with Tesla. If we block Tesla, Tesla could actually be the one that leads the climate revolution. Well, we've got this here is, I don't know if we're going to play this clip. Well, maybe we'll play a little bit of this to close it out here. This is, again, these people are praying on the side of the road there, and then this guy that goes at them, and then it's kind of clownish what happens to his behavior here. We'll play this little clip.
Do it, Maga, do it! Do it, pussy! Come on!
This is amazing.
Go about it!
Crazy leftist. This is a great scene. You got people praying here.
I'm just here. I want it. I don't know. Yeah, you're gonna crash. You're gonna crash, bitch.
It's coming out. Look at you, bro. Come on. Where you at? Let's go. Hey, get off me. Let's go. Come on. Steal your car.
Hey, come over here.
Yeah. Oh, wow, he's fighting. Now he's fighting. Yeah.
There you go.
There we
You
go.
saw it there.
That was funny. The best bit is where he's like pointing at his arm.
He's
What
like,
was he doing that for?
I'm a tough guy. He doesn't like the maggots, right? He doesn't like the maggots. MAGA. And there you go. Apparently in Vegas, you're allowed to show your guns off and then challenge people to a fight. Anyway, that's our show today. We'll leave you with a laugh. And we're back tomorrow morning. We do thank you for watching. And we appreciate you. Like, share, and do all those things. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.